My fellow citizens of this great nation, with a deep awareness of the responsibility conferred by your trust, I accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States. For those who've abandoned hope, we'll restore hope and we'll welcome them into a great national crusade to make America great again.
You want to tell me what this is all about?
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Cause I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks that my mind is gone. But I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Me be treated like a punk, you know that's unheard of. You better watch how you're talking and where you're walking, or you and your homies might be lined in chalk. I really hate the trip, but I gotta low. As they croak, I see myself in the pistol smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of G the little homies wanna be like, on my knees in the night, saying prayers in the street light. Been staying most of their lives, living in the gangster's paradise. We've been spending most of their lives, living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives, living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives. Look at the situation they got me facing. I can't live a normal life. I was raised by the state, so I gotta be down with the hood team. Too much television watching got me chasing dreams. I'm an educated fool with money on my mind. Got my tin in my hand and a gleam in my eye. I'm a loped out gangster, set tripping banker, and my homies is down, so don't arouse my anger. Fool, death ain't nothing but a heartbeat away. I'm living life, do or die. What can I say? I'm 23 now, but will I live to see 24? The way things is going, I don't know. Tell me why are we so blind to see that the ones we hurt are you and me? We've been spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. We've been spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives living in the
And Michael Jordan guarding Len Bias. Big ball game. Double clutch, and he made it. Two of the finest athletes in the country. Michael Jordan and Bias going up side by side. Bias just out-hung him.
Take a man as I pray. I sit and wonder, like why couldn't now be like the old days when everything was fast, smooth, groovy, and sways up in my town.
In June, Bias signs with the Celtics. Matt, and here's his local kid. He signs with the championship. This is a big news story. He flies up to Boston. There are 20 TV cameras in the Boston Garden where he's, with Red Auerbach, welcome, here's your jersey. And by the way, congratulations on signing that $1 million shoe contract. Everybody is really happy. Everybody's paying. Everybody knows in the Congress, doesn't matter where in Congress you're from, you know who Len Bias is. So the night that he signs, he takes the last flight back from Boston to National. He goes back to his dormitory, University of Maryland campus, and he's going to celebrate with his friends. He's partying down. And, well, he's drinking, and he's snorting cocaine, and he has a seizure. And in the morning, he's dead. So that the front page of the newspaper is Bias signs with Celtics. And the local news radio, as you're driving to work, is Len Bias is dead. What a juxtaposition. What a shock. How could this kid with all this promise die? How did this happen?
My left over shoulder told me to grab it and run, while the right danger one said, I was venting to grab the gun and have fun, but I'll be dissing God if I didn't listen. It was a choice to be made between the two to fear, but if it wasn't for the man, I wouldn't be here.
Just shortly after Bias dies, the NFL defensive rookie of the year, Don Rogers with the Cleveland Browns, dies from a crack. It's an epidemic. It's a plague of young athletes dying from cocaine.
Have you ever lost a brother and then you wonder why nature choose to operate this way? Then you find yourself reminiscing about the old days and why life take them in as a prey. Have you ever lost a brother and then you wonder why nature choose to operate this way? Then you find yourself reminiscing about the old days and why life take them in as a prey. Akon and his body actually passed the first wreck properly. Now you see how to not become the victim of the static. We got the boy, now they after us with the automatics. As a bifall, I did what I had to. It was all about who pulled the trigger faster. But I guess nobody flipped the shot too quick, steady being found. But still.
So when the Speaker returns to Washington in early July with all the other members of Congress, he calls the Democratic leadership together and says, I want a Democratic anti-drug bill. I want a bill dealing with drugs from every one of the House committees, because the House committees are all controlled by Democrats. All the chairs of the House committees are Democrats when the Democrats control the House. The assignment was, Eric, identify in some way the highest level traffickers and then mid-level traffickers to focus the Justice Department on them. So I met with, in the time that I had available, I met with an expert, a narcotics investigator, a detective named Jehru, Jehru, St. Valentine Brown, was a District of Columbia. The Metropolitan Police Department of Washington is the local police department, and he was the most famous narc of the Metropolitan Police Department of Washington, and he had been detailed to the staff of the Select Committee on Narcotics Abuse and Control. So I called Jehru up and I said, Jehru, I've got this bill I'm in the middle of writing. I need to define high-level traffickers and mid-level traffickers. How can I pick quantities that will give us a kind of x-ray of where they are in the trafficking pipeline from the field to the street? So in that pipeline, somewhere there's the Mr. Big type character, and then there's also a kind of a mid-level, so the quantities that I used ended up coming from a street-level narc's perspective, rather than from somebody who was like the head of the cocaine section at DEA. He provided recommendations about quantities, and those quantities I used, depending on his expertise, in my draft. Those got adopted by the subcommittee, affirmed then in the full committee markup, carried forward in the passage in the House, go to the Senate. The Senate looks at them and says, well, this came from the liberals in the House. Let's cut the numbers down. Let's so that's in many respects sort of what happens. So marijuana, cocaine, heroin, LSD, methamphetamine, all of the fentanyl. We have mandatory minimums for fentanyl back in 1986. So that the House passed quantities were now like 20 grams of crack would get you 5 years to 20 years. When the Republicans got it, that 20 grams went down to 5 grams, and it went from 5 years to 20 to 5 years to 40 years.
End of the Reagan era. I'm like Lemma 12, old enough to understand to change forever. They declared the war on drugs like a war on terror. But what it really did was let the police terrorize whoever. But mostly black boys, but they would call us and lay
us on our belly while they fingers on their triggers. They boots was on our head, they dogs was on our crotches. And they would beat us up if we had diamonds on our watches. And they would take our drugs and monies as they pick our pockets. I guess that's the privilege of policing for some profit. But thanks to Reaganomics, prison turned to profits. Cause free labor's the cornerstone of U.S. economics. Cause slavery was abolished unless you are in prison. You think I ambush and then read the 13th Amendment. Involuntary servitude and slavery it prohibits. That's why they giving drug offenders time in double digits. Ronald Reagan was an actor, not at all a factor. Just an employee of the country's real masters. Just like the Bushes, Clinton and Obama.
At the end of the day, what ended up happening under the Reagan administration was that you saw a proliferation of building of correctional facilities, jails and prisons. And the people who were being jailed were disproportionately black and brown people.
If I say any more, they might be at my door. Who the fuck is that? Staring in my window, doing that surveillance on Mr. Michael Render. I'm dropping off the grid before they pump the lead. I leave you with 4 words. I'm glad Reagan dead.
Who is supposed to benefit from the drug policy? The first people you want to benefit are those who are suffering from drug problems. Who are they? They are drug users. You want your drug laws to protect drug users. Drug users need to have access to clean drugs. They need to have access to sterile injection equipment. They don't need the justice system. They need help in managing their addiction. And when their lives get stabilized, then they can leave their addiction behind. But hounding them and tormenting them and making them suffer and their families suffer does nothing to help them. And it doesn't help the society. But it does maintain white privilege.